Hello all out there in YouTube and welcome back to my channel. As you can see, I'm not in my typical location. That's because I'm taking care of both Millie and Brooklyn. They're two very good girls, some of my favorite dogs. Love watching these two. I was in the mood to do a random horror recommendation for this video. For those of you new to my channel, this is a series where I recommend a few of the movies that I've seen through the past few months, because I love finding little hidden gems, and I love recommending those gems to people, and people seem to enjoy this series, so I'm going to try to do it a little more regularly. Random horror recommendations. I've got 3 horror movies to recommend randomly. And yes, I do apologize if there is an echo and if the lighting is off. This is the best place in the house to film. So I do apologize for the echo, I do apologize for the lighting if it's off, but let's get into it. Here are 3 horror movies to randomly recommend to you all. The first movie we're going to talk about in this particular episode is Absentia. Now, Absentia came out around 2011, and it was directed by Michael Flanagan. This was an early movie by Michael Flanagan. He's become such a big name in the horror genre. He's done Oculus. He did Dr. Sleep, which I absolutely love. I think that's a fantastic movie. And I haven't had a chance to watch any of his TV shows yet. I might check out some of his movies, some of his TV shows soon, but I've heard good things about his TV shows, especially Haunting of Hill House. Let me know if that's worth dedicating some time to. But anyway, this one here, Absentia, is a cosmic horror film. I love cosmic horror. It's one of my favorite genres of horror. Because I'm a big fan of H.P. Lovecraft and stuff like that, but I love cosmic horror because I love the idea of ordinary people dealing with something that's so far beyond human comprehension. That's a terrifying thought to me. I was in the mood for a cosmic horror movie, and when checking out various cosmic horror movies and looking into some cosmic horror that I have not seen, Absentia came up quite a bit, so I finally had a chance to watch it, and I enjoyed it very, very much. I won't say it's my favorite cosmic horror movie. I don't know if I would watch this movie again, but it's definitely worth watching at least once, and I can see some people liking it more than me. I did enjoy it very much, but I can see other people loving this movie. So, Absentia follows 2 sisters. One who is now pregnant, and her baby is going to be due in another couple months, and the other sister travels the world, has had issues with some drugs and has gone to rehab, and then once she got out of rehab, she has traveled the world, to experience as much as possible, but they come together again because the older sister is, desperately needs help in declaring her husband absentia. Her husband has been missing for 7 years now. He disappeared without a trace. No one's been able to find him. No one's been able to find a body. He's just gone. Like I said, gone without a trace. And so naturally, the woman is pregnant. His wife is pregnant with a baby that's obviously not his, but hey, she has to live her life. Her husband has been gone for over 7 years now. And she's finally at the point where she's ready to let him go and accept the fact that he's never coming back. She's going to move into a smaller apartment. She's getting ready to have this baby. She's going to get more involved with the father of the baby, which is a detective in the town. Her younger sister has come to town to help her set up her new house, help her pack up her husband's things and all that. But anyway, the day after she declares her husband absentia, which that's put on the death certificate that he's just gone without a trace, he mysteriously comes back. He comes back, he's very disheveled, he is not there, he's very far away. He's clearly been traumatized by something. No one's able to talk to him at first. He slowly gets his wits about him and is able to talk again, but he has now returned. No one knows where he was, but it's made pretty clear that he was taken by some entity, and that entity is still watching over him. And this entity has something to do with this tunnel near the house. It's a simple, ordinary tunnel that bikes ride through and people walk through and stuff like that, but people who go into that tunnel, every now and again someone disappears. And this entity in the tunnel is now coming back into our world again because it's eyeballing the husband, his wife, and the younger sister. So this is a very good cosmic horror film. You know, it keeps the entity vague. We don't really know what it is. We get quick glimpses of it, but we never get a full view of it. The younger sister starts seeing it more, and since she had a past with some drugs, people are questioning her sanity and her brain because they think she's on drugs again. So people don't really trust her. They don't know what to think of the husband because, again, he was gone for 7 years and now all of a sudden he's back. And there is an interesting dynamic with this woman who has accepted the fact that she's never going to see her husband again. She has essentially moved on. She is having someone else's baby. Again, 7 years. The guy was gone for 7 years. And that's nothing to sneeze at. 7 years is a long time. And it can be very hard for a partner to accept the fact that they're never going to see their loved one again. But eventually it gets to a part where you come to terms with it. And she has now come to terms with it, and right at the point where she's finally come to terms with it and she's finally ready to move on and get on with her life, now all of a sudden he's back, and it throws her life all out of whack because of it. And then, of course, you have the younger sister who's starting to see the entity around more often, and of course it grows from there, and things get even more twisted as the film goes on. I don't want to spoil too much here because it really goes in some interesting directions. And like I said, it doesn't explain too much about the entity. It keeps everything vague. Naturally, there is a research scene where the younger sister is researching the area and all the disappearances in the area. And of course, there are some theories as to what this creature could be. But the movie never shows its hand. It never really goes into exactly what this creature is. It gives little hints for how it works and what it could be, but it never flat out says what this entity is. But yeah, there's not much else to say about Absentia. It's a solid cosmic horror movie. I won't say it's a great cosmic horror movie, but it is a good cosmic horror movie, and it's worth seeing at least once. I don't know if I would ever watch it again, but like, let's say I had some friends who wanted to see it, then I would watch it with them. It is a good movie, and I can see people liking it more than me. I liked it a lot, I just don't know if I like it enough to give it another watch. But it is well worth a watch. It's worth seeing at least once. If you're a fan of cosmic horror, then yes, I highly, highly recommend checking out Absentia. It is good. It is good, especially for cosmic horror fans. Alright, now the next movie I want to talk about here is, I guess you could call this a found footage movie. It's very difficult from your typical found footage movie. It's called Alone with Her. Now, I have heard about this movie a few times, and I always wanted to check it out, and I have to say it is a very, very fucked up found footage movie, but not in a graphic way. It's fucked up and disturbing in concept, in its ideas, in how the film is executed. It's disturbing on an emotional level and on a psychological level, given what the movie is about. We're basically following a voyeur. We're following a stalker. We're following this guy who has developed an obsession with this woman, and he uses hidden cameras. He has hidden cameras in his clothes or in his bag or like his glasses or something along those lines. He sets up hidden cameras in her house so he can watch her the entire time. That's the way this movie handles found footage movies, and it's really disturbing. It's not graphic, but it is disturbing. The movie came out in 2006, and the technology that is used in this movie has only become more advanced today. And so, yeah, the idea of hidden cameras is a very unsettling thought. It's a very unnerving thought, and it's a very violating thought, too. Because that's what this whole movie is about. This guy is obsessed with this woman and wants to be with her, wants her to be his girlfriend. So he's setting up cameras in her house and filming her. Like, he randomly bumps into her on the streets and starts, talking to her and films the interaction unbeknownst to her, and then uses that information to try and be with her. And again, he's setting up cameras in her house so he can see her during private, intimate moments. He gets information from her through private, intimate conversations, and he's able to use that information in his life to try and get with her and punish her sometimes. When he feels betrayed by her because she has a life away from him, he feels the need to punish her, so he'll break into her house and set glass up on the floor so that she'll step on it, injure herself, and then she won't know who to call, so he's the first person who comes to mind when she needs help, so she'll call him, not knowing that he's the one who set the glass in the first place for her to cut herself on. So yeah, the guy is an abuser, and he's clearly a psychopath because he's setting up cameras in a woman's house and watching her without her permission and learning all these private things about her and using that information. Information is his weapon. It's like Freddy Krueger has his glove, Michael Myers has a knife, Jason Voorhees has a machete, Leatherface has a chainsaw, all that, blah, 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 so on and so forth. His weapon is information. The information he collects while watching this woman in her house. Yeah, it's a very chilling thought. And it's interesting, especially nowadays with social media, where so many people are putting themselves out there. You can go to someone's YouTube channel and learn about their lives. You can go to someone's Instagram page and see all their pictures. But it's different. It is different. Like, when someone posts something on Instagram, that's something they want to share. That's something that they're okay with being public and being viewed by the public. But there are still things that people want to keep private, and having someone able to film you in your most private, intimate moments is such a frightening thought. I mean, it's something that I get nervous about because my job, I do pet sitting and dog walking and stuff like that, and people let me stay at their houses with their dogs. And if there are cameras in the house, they will let me know, but there's always that thing in the back of my mind is, what if they have some cameras in this house that I don't know about and they're seeing me? Like, I'm not doing anything obscene or anything like that, but it's still the thought that I am being filmed without my knowledge, that it's scary. It's such a scary thought. And it's violating in many ways. Knowing that someone is filming you during your private moments is so violating. You hear about this all the time, like people putting hidden cameras in dressing rooms so women change into clothing and then they don't know they're being filmed by someone. Someone putting a hidden camera in somebody's bathroom, someone putting a hidden camera in someone's hotel room, and being able to see these, like I said, these private moments. It's just so scary. It's so frightening. And that's what makes this such a scary found footage movie. It's because this is a found footage movie where the horror is the footage itself. Like in most found footage movies, you have characters filming the horrifying situations that they're in. But in this particular found footage movie, the footage itself is what's horrifying. The fact that these were filmed by some sicko who set these cameras up in this woman's house and she's being filmed without her knowledge. It makes you feel icky and dirty in a way. Yeah, that's right, I said icky. Because when we're watching this footage, we're seeing it as the stalker would see it. We're seeing it through, like, when we're sitting there watching it, we're picturing him watching this footage and learning from it and all that. It puts us in the viewpoint of the stalker, and I'd like to think that the majority of us would never like to be in that situation. I'd like to think that the majority of us are good, moral people who would never think about doing stuff like this. But it's really, really uncomfortable. It is one of those movies where you do feel uncomfortable while watching it, but not in a bad way. I think in a good way, in a way that this movie is supposed to make you feel. So, yes, Alone with Her, if you're a found footage fan, I would highly recommend checking out Alone with Her because it's so different from so many other found footage movies. And like I said, it's a found footage movie where the footage itself is what's horrifying about this movie. So it's a found footage horror movie in the truest sense of the word, in many ways. So yeah, Alone with Her. I cannot recommend it enough, especially to found footage fans. And I think some non-found footage fans might like it too because of the way it's done. Just don't expect anything too action-packed. This is handled in a very realistic way. But yes, it's a very unsettling found footage movie that I highly, highly recommend. And for the final movie we're talking about in this episode of Random Horror Recommendations, I like to save my favorite of the three for last, and that's what we're doing here. So, Alone with Her was a disturbing movie, and so we're going to end it with another disturbing movie. This movie came out in 1971. It's a British, I guess you could call it a horror movie, 10 Rillington Place. Now, this is a British horror movie, and I've seen it classified as a crime thriller, a biography, a drama, but it's a serial killer movie, and it is very, very horrific. So, yes, I do consider it a horror movie. I can see some people considering it not a horror movie. It's one of those movies that people could consider it not a horror movie, but because of its subject matter, because of how it's handled, it would be accepted into the horror genre, because what other genre would have this movie? Because Jesus Christ, this movie gets pretty fucked up. So like I said, this movie came out in 1971. It takes place in the 1940s, and it follows real-life serial killer John Christie. Sorry, I had to double-check that name. John Christie, he lived in 10 Rillington Place, and he owned his own little apartment area, and he rented out a couple of rooms to people. And he was a serial killer who murdered 8 people, mostly in 10 Rillington Place, and he would bury them in the garden out back, or he would hide them in his walls, or these various other places. And this particular story involves a young couple that he and his wife rented a room out to, and how that led to murder, and the eventual miscarriage of justice of one of the tenants who was blamed for the murders, and the eventual capture of John Christie and proving that he was indeed the murderer. It's I don't know all the details of it, but I do want to look more into it, but the movie itself is really, really effective, very good, and definitely one of the best serial killer movies I've watched in a little while. So the movie is very simple. We're just watching the life of this serial killer and the specific event that led to the miscarriage of justice towards Timothy Evans. Timothy Evans was the husband in the young couple that rented the 2 rooms from John Christie. It was this young couple who had a baby girl, and they were in a rough patch, especially with money, and there were a couple of arguments that got rather heated, and which eventually led to Timothy Evans being blamed for John Christie's murders and eventually getting the death penalty. And it wasn't until after people found out that John Christie was the murderer that he was acquitted. It's considered a huge miscarriage of justice in England. But anyway, going to the story. There are some powerhouse performances in this movie. John Christie is played by Richard Attenborough, who we all know as John Hammond from Jurassic Park. It was so interesting seeing him in this role. I saw him in The Great Escape, and he's great in The Great Escape, but when I grew up, I knew him as John Hammond from Jurassic Park, and he played Santa Claus in the remake of Miracle on 34th Street, so I always saw him as this kind Santa Claus-esque figure. I mean, John Hammond has this sort of Santa Claus-esque feel to him and stuff like that, so seeing him in this role and seeing him play such a sadistic bastard was fascinating to me. I was like, John Hammond, how could you? And I know that's not how John Hammond was in the book, Jurassic Park, but I watched the movie Jurassic Park first, and, but anyway, it's a tangent there. And Timothy Evans is played by John Hurt, and we all know how great John Hurt is. We all know him from Alien, his most iconic role, but he is great in this movie. I mean, John Hurt is great in whatever he's in. He is fantastic in this movie. You have two actors giving such great performances in this film, and it's like, you feel for these people. Like, you feel for Timothy Evans, and like I said, I don't know too much details of the case, but... and I don't want to spoil too much of the film, but like when shit hits the fan and John Hurt gives his performance, like, you really feel for the guy, and you're watching these two great actors giving great performances, and it's just it makes the movie even harder to watch. But yes, this is a serial killer movie, and it's not really graphic at all. It was a GP rating in England. I don't know for certain, but I think that's close to a PG rating in America. But again, 1970s PG, which is essentially what PG-13 is today. But anyway, so yeah, it's not that graphic. I mean, there are murders in the movie. It's a movie about a serial killer, so there are kills in the movie, but we never really see any of them. We see the aftermath of them. Like, we know what happens. It makes it very clear what happened in these movies, during these scenes when someone is murdered. But again, we don't see it, but we don't need to see it. We just, like, see before the murder, and then we see after the murder, where, like, John Christie is carrying a body down the stairs, or burying a body in the backyard, or trying to hide a body in the walls. Richard Attenborough's performance as John Christie is so chilling because he's so relaxed, he's so reserved, he's so quiet in everything he does, like when he's killing someone, when he's manipulating other people and stuff like that. He's so relaxed, he's so quiet. Even when he's nervous about something, like when there are people in his house and they think they might find a body, when the cops are involved or something like that, even his nervousness is subdued and calm and relaxed. We can tell he's nervous, but it's like he's able to, subdue it in a way so that it's all quiet, which is such a good performance. And it is disturbing because, like, this is a guy who murders people and can be so calm and relaxed when he's doing it. And the thing that makes 10 Rillington Place a little more chilling is that the movie was filmed at 10 Rillington Place. Not the majority of it. Like, the exteriors were filmed at the location of 10 Rillington Place where the murders took place. But the interiors were filmed in, like, the building next door, or the apartments next door. But the actual location was used in the film. It was supposed to be demolished, but they held off on demolishing the location until after they made the movie, which just gives it that extra element. That's like a movie about Jeffrey Dahmer being made in the Dahmer apartment, or a movie about John Wayne Gacy being filmed in John Wayne Gacy's house. It's that extra element that just makes it so chilling. But yeah, 10 Rillington Place. It's a great movie. It's interesting. It's disturbing in a subtle way, in a suggested way. And it has some fantastic performances, especially with Richard Attenborough and John Hurt. Two great performances. And there are scenes where you got two great actors working off of each other. I can highly recommend this one. Like, for people who are interested in true crime stuff, highly recommend this. If you're a horror fan, highly recommend this. If you have, if you like serial killer movies, highly recommend this. This is a movie that, because it does everything more suggested, I can recommend this to everybody. There are some movies that only horror fans will like, but this is a movie I can recommend to everybody because it's so good, and because it's so well done, and because it handles all its disturbing aspects in suggested ways. I think it's a little more digestible for everybody. That's what I got for this episode. 3 movies for you to check out. Like I said, I want to try to, I said this in the last episode, I want to try to do this a little more regularly, like maybe once a month or every other month, just so, because I enjoy doing this, I enjoy recommending movies to all of you, and people seem to like this. So, What I like to say in these episodes, if there's any movie that you've checked out in the past few months that you think is worth checking out, leave them in the comments down below. Yeah, your suggestions out of the things you've seen in the past few months or few weeks, leave that down below. Thank you so much for continuing to watch this channel. Thank you all so much for continuing to support this channel. It does mean a lot that you are taking time out of your day to watch my stuff. With all the content that there is on YouTube, the fact that you are watching my stuff, I really appreciate it. Thank you all so much. Thank you so much for watching this episode. Hopefully we'll have a proper review next week, but until then, check out these movies if you haven't seen them, and until next time, this is the Maniac here to remind you that the grindhouse will never die. And I fumbled a bit with that, I apologize, but that's because there's a dog sleeping down there. Have a good night, everybody.